The room was silent except for the creak of the floorboard under David's step, and in that frozen second, my heart stopped. I stood there, bare as the day I was born, towel crumpled on the floor, my secret laid raw before the one person I'd fought to hide it from. His eyes, those piercing blue eyes I'd known since we were kids, locked onto mine, and I braced for the judgment that never came. My name is Ethan Carter, and I grew up in Willow Creek, a small town in upstate New York where everyone knows your business before you do. David Mitchell was my best friend, the kind of guy who'd punch a bully for you in 5th grade and split his last dollar with you at the county fair. We were inseparable, two white kids running through cornfields, fishing in the lake, dreaming of lives bigger than our sleepy town. But there was one thing I never told him, one truth I buried so deep it burned. I was gay, and I'd been in love with him since we were 16. That summer, we were 22, home from college, sharing a creaky old cabin by Lake Willow for a month. It was supposed to be a nostalgic escape, beer, fishing, late-night talks about nothing and everything. But that morning, I'd lingered too long in the shower, lost in thoughts of him, and forgot to lock the bathroom door. The door swung open, and there he was, staring at me, his face unreadable. I expected him to turn away, to laugh it off, or worse, to freeze me out like so many others in this town would. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "Ethan," he said, "we need to talk." The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I grabbed the towel, wrapping it around myself, my cheeks burning. "David," I stammered, but he held up a hand, his expression soft but intense. "Not here," he said. "Let's go to the dock." The dock was our place, where we'd spent countless evenings skipping stones and spilling secrets. But this time, it felt different, like walking into a storm you couldn't predict. We sat on the weathered wood, the lake shimmering under the midday sun. My heart pounded as I waited for him to speak, to ask why I'd never told him, to demand answers I wasn't ready to give. Instead, he looked out at the water, his jaw tight. "I saw the way you looked at me last night," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "when we were laughing by the fire. I've seen it before, Ethan, but I never let myself believe it." My stomach dropped. Last night, we'd been joking about old high school crushes, and I let my guard down, my eyes lingering on him too long. I thought I covered it, but David always saw through me. I didn't mean I started, but he shook his head. "Don't lie to me," he said, turning to face me. His eyes were searching, not angry, but something else, something that made my chest ache. "I know you, Ethan, better than anyone, and I think I've known for a while." The words hung between us, heavy and dangerous. I wanted to run, to dive into the lake and disappear, but his gaze held me there. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He leaned closer, his hand brushing mine on the dock. "I'm saying I'm not as straight as you think." The world tilted. David, my David, the guy who dated half the cheerleading squad in high school, who'd never so much as hinted at anything like this, was looking at me like I was the only thing that mattered. My mind raced, replaying every moment we'd shared, every laugh, every glance. Had I missed something? Or had he been hiding too? "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. You're not." He gave a small, sad smile. I didn't know how to say it. Hell, I didn't know what to feel until I saw you just now, standing there, looking so damn scared. It hit me like a freight train, Ethan. I don't want to lose you. Not as a friend, not as anything more. My breath caught. The lake lapped gently against the dock, but inside, a storm was raging. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? Or was this some cruel trick, a moment of pity that would break me when it ended? "David, don't," I said, pulling my hand away. "Don't say things you don't mean. Not to me." "I mean it," he said, his voice fierce now. "I've spent years pretending I didn't feel something, telling myself it was just friendship, just loyalty. But it's more, Ethan, and I'm done running from it." I stared at him, my heart a battlefield of hope and fear. This was David, my best friend, the guy I'd loved in silence for years. And now he was offering me something I'd never dared to dream of. But Willow Creek wasn't kind to people like me. I'd seen the whispers, the cold shoulders, The way folks looked at Jamie, the only openly gay guy in town, who'd left for the city after one too many slurs. If David was serious, we were stepping into dangerous territory. People here, I started, my voice low. They won't understand. Screw them, he said, his eyes blazing. This is about us, not them. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into this impossible hope. But fear clawed at me. Fear of losing him, fear of what our town would do, fear that this was all a mistake. I stood, needing distance, needing air. I need time, I said, my voice breaking. It's too much. He nodded, his face a mix of determination and patience. Take all the time you need, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere. As I walked back to the cabin, my mind was a whirlwind. David's words echoed, each one a spark, igniting something I'd buried for years. But with that spark came a shadow, a fear that this could unravel everything we were. I didn't know if I was ready to face it, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same. The cabin smelled of pine and old memories, but that night, it felt like a cage. I lay on my bunk, staring at the ceiling, David's words replaying like a song I couldn't shake. I'm not as straight as you think. Each syllable was a dagger, cutting through years of denial, leaving me raw and exposed. By morning, I couldn't face him. I slipped out before dawn, grabbing my fishing rod and heading to the lake. The water was still, reflecting the gray sky, and I cast my line, hoping the rhythm of it would quiet my mind. But every ripple reminded me of him, of the way his hand had brushed mine, of the weight in his eyes. I'd spent so long hiding who I was, convincing myself that loving him was a one-way street. Now, he flipped the map, and I was lost. Footsteps crunched behind me. I didn't turn, but I knew it was him. David sat beside me, silent, his own rod in hand. We fished for an hour without speaking, the tension between us thicker than the morning fog. Finally, he broke the silence. "You're avoiding me," he said, not accusing, just stating a fact. I reeled in my line, staring at the water. "I don't know what to say, David. Yesterday, it changed everything." He set his rod down, turned to face me. "It doesn't have to. Not unless you want it to." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Want? David, I wanted this for years. But wanting doesn't make it safe. You know how this town is. You've heard the things they say about people like me." "Like us," he corrected, his voice firm. "I'm in this too, Ethan. I'm not asking you to carry it alone." His words hit hard, but they didn't erase the fear. Willow Creek was a place where tradition ran deep, where different was a dirty word. I'd seen it in the way folks whispered about Jamie, in the way my own parents changed the subject when I tried to talk about my future. If David and I crossed this line, we'd be painting targets on our backs. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "Not just of them, of losing you. What if this ruins us?" He reached for my hand, his grip warm and steady. "It won't. I've spent too long pretending I didn't feel this. I'm not letting fear stop me now." His touch sent a shiver through me, a mix of longing and dread. I wanted to lean into it, to let myself believe we could have this. But the world outside the lake was waiting, and it wasn't kind. "What about your family?" I asked. "Your dad's the pastor, David. He quotes Leviticus like it's his job." David's face darkened. "He's my dad, not my keeper. I'll deal with him." I pulled my hand away, standing to pace the shore. "It's not just him. It's everyone. The guys at the bar, the church ladies, the whole damn town. They'll tear us apart. Then we leave," he said, standing to meet my gaze. "We go somewhere they can't touch us. New York City, San Francisco, anywhere. I don't care as long as it's with you." The words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. Leaving meant uprooting everything. Our families, our history, the only home we'd ever known. I thought of my mom, who baked pies for every church social, and my dad, who still called me champ like I was 10. Could I walk away from him? Could David? Before I could answer, a truck roared down the dirt road nearby. It was Tommy, one of David's old high school buddies, his pickup kicking up dust. He leaned out the window, grinning. "Joel, Miche, Carter, you guys hiding out here like hermits?" David forced a smile, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Just fishing, man, he called back. Tommy's eyes flicked between us, lingering a second too long. Right. Well, there's a bonfire at my place tonight. You in? I felt David's gaze on me, a silent question. I nodded slightly, not ready to face the world, but unwilling to hide. Sure, David said. We'll be there. As Tommy drove off, I turned to David. You sure about this? No, he admitted, his voice low. But I'm sure about you. The bonfire was a mistake. Tommy's backyard was packed with familiar faces, guys we played football with, girls we danced with at prom. The air smelled of beer and burning wood, and everyone was laughing, oblivious to the storm inside me. David stayed close, his shoulder brushing mine, but every touch felt like a spotlight. I caught Tommy watching us, his grin fading into something harder to read. Halfway through the night, David grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the crowd. We ended up behind Tommy's barn, hidden in the shadows. You okay? He asked, his voice soft. I shook my head. I feel like they can see right through me. Like they know. He stepped closer, his hand cupping my cheek. Let them. I'm not ashamed of this, Ethan. I'm not ashamed of you. Before I could protest, he kissed me. It was quick, fierce, and full of everything we'd left unsaid. My world narrowed to the warmth of his lips, the strength of his hands, the promise in his touch. For a moment, I forgot the town, the bonfire, the fear. There was only him. But then a voice cut through the darkness. What the hell? We broke apart, my heart slamming against my ribs. Tommy stood there, his face a mix of shock and disgust. The world I'd feared was crashing down, and there was no going back. Tommy's voice was a blade, slicing through the fragile bubble of that kiss. David stepped in front of me, his body tense, like he was ready to take a punch. Back off, Tommy, he said, his voice low but steady. Tommy's eyes narrowed, flicking between us. You serious, Mitchell? You're what? With him. The word dripped with contempt, and I felt it like a slap. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the earth and never come up. But David didn't flinch. Yeah, he said, his voice rising. I'm with him. Got a problem with that. The air crackled with tension. I grabbed David's arm, whispering, let's go. But he shook me off, his eyes locked on Tommy. The bonfire's glow cast harsh shadows on Tommy's face, and for a moment, I thought he'd swing. Instead, he spat on the ground and walked away, muttering, You're both freaks. We stood there, the night pressing in around us. My hands shook, not from the cold, but from the weight of what had just happened. Tommy wouldn't stay quiet. By morning, half the town would know. David, I said, my voice breaking, this is bad. He turned to me, his face fierce. I don't care what he thinks. I care about you. His words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the dread pooling in my gut. We left the bonfire, driving back to the cabin in silence. The lake was dark now, the stars hidden behind clouds. Inside, David lit a fire, but the warmth couldn't touch the chill inside me. We can't stay here, I said finally, sitting on the couch. Not after that. David knelt in front of me, his hands on my knees. Then we leave. Tomorrow. We pack up and go. I laughed, a hollow sound. And go where? We've got no money, no plan. My parents will disown me. Your dad. I'll handle my dad, he cut in, and we'll figure it out. Together. His certainty was an anchor, but it also scared me. I'd spent years hiding, building walls to protect myself. Now, those walls were crumbling, and I didn't know if I was ready for what lay beyond. What if we're making a mistake? I asked. What if this us doesn't work? He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. It's not a mistake. I've never been more sure of anything. I wanted to believe him, but the fear was relentless. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with images of angry faces, whispered slurs, and the life we'd lose if we stayed. By morning, the news had spread. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Claire, people are talking. You okay? I didn't reply. Instead, I found David outside, loading our bags into his truck. We're going to the city, he said, his voice resolute. I've got a cousin in Brooklyn. He'll let us crash until we figure things out. Brooklyn? I echoed, the word feeling foreign. David, this is crazy. We can't just. We can, he said, grabbing my shoulders. We're not running away. We're running towards something. A life where we don't have to hide. His words sparked something in me. Hope, maybe, or desperation. I nodded, climbing into the truck. As we drove out of Willow Creek, the town's familiar streets felt like a fading dream. But the real world was waiting, and it wasn't done with us yet. In Brooklyn, David's cousin, Mark, welcomed us with open arms. His apartment was small, cluttered with books and vinyl records, but it felt like a sanctuary. Mark was the opposite of Willow Creek. Openly gay, unapologetic, with a laugh that filled the room. You two are brave, he said that first night, pouring us wine. Takes guts to leave a place like that. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a fugitive, running from a life I'd barely begun to understand. But David's hand found mine under the table, and for the first time, I let myself hold on. The city was overwhelming. Noise, lights, people who didn't care who we were. We found jobs, me at a coffee shop, David at a construction site. It was hard, but it was ours. At night, we'd walk the streets, stealing kisses in alleyways, learning each other in ways I'd never dared to dream. But the past wasn't done with us. One evening, David got a call from his dad. I could hear the shouting through the phone, words like sin and disgrace. David's face was stone, but when he hung up, he sank onto the couch, head in his hands. He wants me to come home, he said. Says he can fix me. My heart clenched. What did you say? I told him to go to hell, he said, but his voice cracked. He's my dad, Ethan. I thought he'd at least try to understand. I sat beside him, pulling him close. You don't need him to understand. You've got me. He leaned into me, his breath warm against my neck. I know, but it hurts. We held each other that night, the city humming outside. I realized then that love wasn't just the kisses or the laughter. It was this too, the quiet strength of facing the world together. But Willow Creek was still out there, and I knew it wouldn't let us go so easily. Brooklyn was our refuge, but it wasn't home. Not yet. The city's pulse was exhilarating, but beneath it, I carried a knot of fear that Willow Creek's shadow would find us. David, though, was a rock, his hand in mine a constant reminder that we'd chosen each other. Work kept us grounded. My coffee shop job was grueling, but the customers were kind, their faces a blur of stories I'd never know. David came home from the construction site, covered in dust, his smile tired but real. We were building something, not just a life, but a future. Still, the past clung to us like damp air. One night, as we sat on Mark's tiny balcony, David got a letter. It was from his mom, handwritten, the kind of thing you don't see much anymore. His hands shook as he opened it, and I watched his face shift from hope to pain. She wants me to come back for Thanksgiving, he said, his voice flat. Says the family misses me. But Dad, he won't be there if I bring you. The words stung, even though they weren't aimed at me. I thought of my own parents, who'd gone silent since I left. No calls, no texts, just a void where their love used to be. What do you want to do? I asked, afraid of his answer. He crumpled the letter, tossing it aside. I'm not going without you. They don't get to pick and choose who I love. Love, he'd said it before, but it still hit me like a wave, warm and overwhelming. I leaned over, kissing him softly, the city lights blurring around us. Then we stay here, I said. We make our own Thanksgiving. And we did. Mark helped us cook a turkey in his tiny oven, laughing as we burned the stuffing. We ate on the floor, surrounded by candles, telling stories of our old life and dreaming of the new. It was perfect, but it couldn't erase the ache of what we'd lost. Weeks later, trouble found us. I was closing the coffee shop when Tommy walked in. My stomach dropped. He shouldn't be here, not 300 miles from Willow Creek. His smirk was the same, but his eyes were harder, colder. Heard you two ran off to play house, he said, leaning on the counter. Didn't think you'd last. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. But he didn't move. David's dad sent me, he said. He's worried about his boy. Wants it back. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white. David's fine. He doesn't need you or his dad. Tommy laughed, low and mean. You think you can just walk away? This city's no place for you, Ethan. You're still that scared kid from Willow Creek, and David's gonna see it eventually. His words cut deep, stirring doubts I try to bury. I thought of David, of the life we were building, and anger flared. You don't know him, I said. Or me. Get out before I call the cops. He left, but the encounter left me shaken. That night, I told David everything. His face darkened, but he pulled me close. Tommy's wrong, he said. I'm not going back, and I'm not leaving you. But the fear lingered. What if Tommy was right? What if I wasn't enough for David, for this new life? I started noticing things, David's long silences, the way he stared at his phone like he was waiting for a call that never came. I wondered if he missed Willow Creek, his family, the life he'd left behind. One evening we fought. It was small at first, something about dishes left in the sink, but it spiraled. You're shutting me out, I said, my voice rising. I see it, David. You're not happy. I'm trying, he snapped. You think this is easy? I gave up everything for this, for us. The words hit like a punch. So did I said, tears burning my eyes. But I'm not the one pulling away. He looked at me, his face raw with emotion. I'm not pulling away, Ethan. I am scared, okay. Scared I'm not enough for you, that I can't protect you from all this. I stepped closer, my anger fading. You don't have to protect me. Just be with me. He pulled me into his arms, and we stood there, holding on like the world might break us apart. The fight didn't solve everything, but it cracked open the truth. We were both scared, both fighting for something bigger than ourselves. And we weren't giving up. Winter settled over Brooklyn, the city draped in gray. David and I were finding our rhythm, but the scars of Willow Creek lingered. We'd built a fragile happiness, one stitched together with late-night talks and quiet moments, but the world outside was never far away. One morning, I found a letter slipped under our door. No stamp, just my name in sharp, angry handwriting. Inside was a single sentence. You don't belong here. My hands shook as I showed it to David. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything, just pulled me close. We didn't know who sent it. Tommy, someone from his dad's church, or just a cruel stranger. But it felt like Willow Creek had followed us. We can't let this get to us, David said, his voice steady. We're stronger than them. I nodded, but the fear was a weight I couldn't shake. That night, we went to a local bar. One Mark swore was a safe space. It was loud, colorful, filled with people who didn't care who we loved. For the first time, I felt free, dancing with David, his laugh bright and unguarded. But as we left, a group of guys followed us. They didn't say much, just slurs hissed under their breath, but it was enough to make my heart race. David grabbed my hand, pulling me down a side street. Keep walking, he whispered. We made it home, but the encounter left us shaken. This isn't Willow Creek, I said, pacing the apartment. Why does it feel the same? It's not the same, David said, his voice fierce. We're not hiding anymore. We're fighting for this. He was right, but the fight was wearing us down. I started seeing the strain in him, the late nights at work, the calls from his mom he didn't answer. I wondered if he regretted this, if the cost of us was too high. But then he'd smile, or kiss me in the middle of a crowded street, and I'd remember why we were here. Spring came, and with it, a chance to start over. Mark connected us with a community center that supported queer youth. We volunteered, sharing our story with kids who reminded us of ourselves, scared, hopeful, searching for a place to belong. It was healing, a reminder that we weren't alone. One evening, as we walked home, David stopped me under a streetlight. I want to marry you, he said, his voice steady. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. I want the world to know you're mine. My breath caught. Marriage was a dream I'd never let myself have. Not in Willow Creek. Not even here. But looking into his eyes, I saw it. A future where we didn't just survive, but thrived. I want that too, I said, my voice thick with emotion. We kissed, the city alive around us, and for the first time, I felt like we could win. The world wasn't kind, but it was changing, and we were part of that change. Willow Creek was a memory, one that shaped us but didn't define us. We lost a lot: family, friends, the safety of the familiar. But we gained something greater: each other. Years later, we did marry in a small ceremony with Mark and a few new friends. The kids from a community center were there, cheering louder than anyone. David's mom came, her eyes wet with pride and regret. His dad didn't, but David didn't need him anymore. We'd built our own family, one forged in love and resilience. Looking back, that moment in the cabin, when David walked in and saw me, truly saw me, changed everything. It was the spark that lit our path through fear and pain to something beautiful. We weren't just surviving. We were living unapologetically as ourselves. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all.